Our identity shouldn't give you fuel or reason to actually hate us. You know, while we are different in some aspects, we're also very similar. Look for the similarities in us. We want to love and be loved.
A recent report reveals that 320 trans and gender-diverse individuals lost their lives in 2023. The Trans Murder Monitoring Report documents murders reported in the media annually, with the latest report covering fatalities from October 1, 2022 to September 30, 2023. The report highlights that the vast majority, 94% of those killed, were trans women or trans feminine individuals, with many being Black. Furthermore, it notes that 80% of the victims were trans individuals impacted by racism, representing a 15% increase from the previous year. A large portion of the victims were young, with the highest number of victims falling between the ages of 19 and 25. Collectively, individuals aged 19 to 40 accounted for 77% of the reported fatalities. This year, the number of deaths is down from 2021's peak of 375 murders. The report's authors maintain that their data analysis still shows troubling trends seen in previous years. This is especially critical when transgender individuals face violence due to the combination of misogyny, racism, xenophobia, and queerphobia. The data and name list reveals stark violence against the victims. Nearly half, 46% of the victims were shot, while others were subjected to beatings, stabbings, and burnings. Every year, in honor of these victims, we recognize the International Trans Day of Remembrance on November 20, which began back in the late 90s. As part of the observance, transgender people, their families and allies come together to remember those who have been taken from them too soon, to reflect on the violence that transgender people continue to face, and to celebrate the lives of those who have been lost. This day serves to bring attention to the violence and discrimination that transgender people face, and to remember those who have been lost to anti-transgender violence. So let's take some time out to remember some amazing souls. Maria Jose Rivera, 22, was killed back in January of this year by her intimate partner before he took his own life.
Well, the investigation is still in its early stages here, but police say it appears to be an apparent murder-suicide. Both victims suffering gunshot wounds. Neighbors and friends say the victims were dating, and one of them was from El Salvador. Close friends say this is who they knew as Maria Fer. Neighbor Jorge Espino says she was a transgender woman in her early 20s.
Triste porque pues estaba bien jovencito.
Espino said it's sad. Espino says he last saw Maria Fer on Tuesday. Detectives with the Houston Police Department say they were alerted to the apartment after neighbors reported a foul smell.
The bodies are in a decomposed state, but that's going to be for the medical examiner to determine.
She was lively, funny, and dynamic. My heart hurts from her loss. Transgender people who are immigrants suffer 2 levels of oppression and marginalization from society. This makes them especially vulnerable to harm. The transgender immigrant community deserves respect and safety. Tracy Williams was a 22-year-old transgender woman with a larger-than-life personality. Also known as Tracy Single, back in 2019, she was found murdered in a parking lot in Houston, Texas. She died from multiple sharp force injuries. A month later, her boyfriend, 29-year-old Joshua Dominique Lled was arrested and charged with her murder. According to friends and family, she wanted to end their relationship.
You were charged with the felony offense of murder.
By the time Joshua Bourgeois made his initial court appearance, almost a month has passed since his girlfriend, Tracy Williams, was found stabbed to death in West Houston. Williams' mother, who refers to her transgender daughter by the gender of her birth, is grateful.
He was an all-around good kid, for the most part. He was a very good child to an adult.
Police say that Williams, known as Tracy Single in the transgender community, had been dating Bourgeois for about 3 months. They believe he stabbed her after she said she wanted to break up, and they credit the community for solving the crime.
We reached out as soon as we knew that we had someone who was unidentified to different community partners that we work with on a regular basis to let them know what the descriptors were and to let them know that we had found someone who was deceased. They immediately put that information out, and within an hour we started getting our first tips.
Activist Monica Roberts says Williams is the 16th transgender woman to be killed in the U.S. this year, and she worries the trend could increase.
Sadly, until, the anti-trans violence and the hate rhetoric that's going on that demonizes trans folks stops, it's going to continue.
HPD agrees that transgender women of color like Williams are especially prone to becoming victims of violence, and that's why they say community involvement is so important in reducing and solving these crimes.
It wasn't a family member or a friend that helped to get this guy, it was the community.
Love Slater, 23, was described by friends as being a real sweetheart. A friend of B stated that the night before her body was found, she had sent cryptic text messages where she stated she wanted to leave town, as she was worried she would get in trouble if she stayed in Florida.
Somebody has to know something, and regardless if someone was there or not, someone knows something.
A year later, and the family of Bowman Slater still left with nothing but grief after her brutal murder in Clewiston. Fox 4's Leslie Dellisbourg spoke with the family and law enforcement who say the community can help solve this case.
A human, a very kind-hearted human, like all of us should be anyway. And it shouldn't have happened, not that way, not that way.
That's how the family of Bowman Slater described her in a press conference this morning. Slater, also known as B-Love, was a transgender woman murdered here in Hendry County. Deputies found Slater burned beyond recognition in her car in the area of 1218 Virginia Avenue in Clewiston. But Slater is from Belle Glade, Pahokee in Palm Beach County. Investigators are still working to find out how she wound up in Clewiston.
To date, detectives have interviewed several hundred people, written and executed over 40 search warrants. Today, this homicide investigation is still very much active and continues to be investigated.
Sheriff Whitten says Hendry County continues to work closely with the FBI to solve this case. But FBI agent Davis Christie says this case is now being looked at as a possible hate crime.
Hate crimes are the highest priority of the FBI's civil rights program, and we're working in partnership with Hendry County in order to solve this case. The murder of Love Slater 1 year ago demands our investigative rigor and commitment, and we're here to provide that commitment to the community of Hendry County and to the family.
Lametris Jackson, Slater's best friend, spoke on behalf of the family today. Jackson tells us this past year has been unlike any other.
It has been traumatic, especially for her. She wasn't just her son or her daughter. They were best friends. B-Love was best friends with everybody because everybody loved her. So it's been traumatic.
Jackson says Slater's mother and loved ones all want the same thing: answers.
Just the truth and some justice is all we're asking for. We're not asking for an improper arrest, but something, anything at this point will do.
Police had a person of interest, but it wasn't until 2021 when an arrest was made.
Deputies have arrested someone in connection with the killing of a transgender woman that happened in 2019. Her name was B-Love. Her body was found in this burnt-out car, a PT Cruiser in Clewiston in 2019. More on this person on the right who's been arrested and the role that deputies suspect he played in the crime just a little bit later. But right now, Fox 4's Rob Manch looking into the push to do more to protect other members of Florida's LGBTQIA community. Rob?
Right, Patrick. So I spoke with State Representative Carlos Guillermo Smith, and even though it hasn't been labeled this way yet, he believes what happened to B-Love was a hate crime. And he says the laws here in Florida need to be changed to make sure those crimes are reported to the federal government. Representative Carlos Guillermo Smith says trans people like B-Love are being targeted, and it's a growing problem.
Just in the year 2021, we have seen at least 50 transgender individuals murdered in the United States.
But he says here in Florida, those crimes may not ever end up in the federal hate crime database.
Law enforcement agencies are not required in our state to report hate crimes in their communities into the federal database, which unfortunately creates a bit of a blind spot.
That's a blind spot that Alanis Garcia says she also would like to see fixed. Like B-Love, she too is a trans woman.
We're just people trying to exist. And the more you see people like us, the more hopefully you're willing to accept us.
But Garcia says to prevent more deaths like Love's, it's going to take more than simply reporting the numbers.
The problem is that's something that's happening after we're dead. And while that does in some ways avenge us for what happened to us, I'd like to see stuff done to make it so that we don't have to get to that point.
And one of the changes Garcia says could be made right now is a change to the Federal Fair Housing Act. So right now, it does not recognize trans people as a protected class, so they can be denied housing based on simply their status as a trans person. Teajai
Ashton, 20 years old, had the desire to become an entrepreneur. She had been putting money aside to buy her dream car, a Tesla. She had also begun the steps of opening a clothing boutique and started an Instagram account to market her new business the week before she died. Her grandfather described her as having had a beautiful soul with a bright presence that would light up any room. Unfortunately, that light was turned off back in 2021 when she was found shot to death in her apartment in Maryland. Her boyfriend, D. Allen Price, was arrested and charged with her murder. Detectives linked phone conversations between the victim and D. Allen.
In Prince George's County, a grand jury returned an indictment against a man accused of murdering a 20-year-old woman who was transgender. Prosecutors say 27-year-old D. Allen Price shot and killed Teajai Ashton in her apartment in Suitland on July 17th. You're looking at the state's attorney, Aisha Braveboy there. Now, Price was arrested the next day on unrelated charges after running from officers and onto the metro tracks at the Pentagon City Station. That's where investigators say they found the weapon linked to Ashton's murder. Prosecutors and police say this was not a random attack.
We don't know what exactly what the motive is at this point, but we do know that they were in a relationship.
Yeah, a romantic relationship. Price is still being held on those unrelated charges in Arlington. Now in Prince George's County, he's charged with first and second degree murder.
Present day, D. Allen is behind bars awaiting his trial date, as this is an ongoing case. 27-year-old Dominique Fels was a dancer and aspiring fashion designer whom friends called a unique and beautiful soul. According to her family, she did her own thing with confidence, which as a family they all embraced. In 2020, her body was found floating in the Schuylkill River, located in Philadelphia. She had been stabbed over 40 times with trauma to her face, head, and both of her legs, severed mid-thigh.
Tonight, Philadelphia police are calling the death of a trans woman whose battered body was discovered in the Schuylkill River a homicide. The dismembered body of Dominique Fels was found floating Monday near Bartram's Garden in southwest Philadelphia. NBC 10 spoke tonight with transgender activist Teajai Alvarez, who says black trans women are often the targets of violent and sometimes deadly attacks.
Our identity shouldn't give you fuel or reason to actually hate us. You know, while we are different in some aspects, we're also very similar. Look for the similarities in us. We want to love and be loved.
According to the Human Rights Campaign, at least 26 trans and gender non-conforming people were killed nationwide last year. 91% of the known victims were black women.
Her killer was soon arrested.
Jess and Yuki, the family is asking anyone who knows the whereabouts of their loved one's murderer to just do the right thing and turn him into police. They are preparing to bury Dominique tomorrow with her killer still on the run. He's considered armed and dangerous. 36-year-old Akhenaton Jones is wanted for the brutal murder of Dominique Fels. The 27-year-old trans woman's dismembered body was discovered last week, discarded in the Schuylkill River in southwest Philly.
We were always concerned about her. Whenever we saw her, we say, listen, be careful, make sure that you're safe, because we knew that there's a lot of hate out there for transgender.
Dominique's family is beyond devastated.
We accepted her as who she identified as, and we just wanted the best for her.
Dominique knew Jermise and Roland Williams as her aunt and uncle. They tell us Dominique had a promising future in cosmetology and had a personality that could brighten any room.
Dominique has been full of life. She's always been very charismatic, very outgoing, outspoken.
There's an arrest warrant out for Jones. Detectives stopped by his home at 3927 Powelton Avenue, where they found several things, including a hazmat suit, blood stains, and a grinding tool with blood.
Turn him in. This was a gruesome death. How anybody could do this to another human being is just so heartless and cruel. No mother should have to go through this, and I'm speaking for my sister-in-law.
The family is grateful for the outpouring of support from across the country. A GoFundMe started for Dominique has already surpassed $120,000. Now the family is hoping an arrest comes quickly.
If one person can do that to another human being, what else is he capable of? And, in my eyes, if you're able to do that one time, you could do it again.
The trial will begin in February of 2024, where Jones will be his own legal representation. We must always remember the transgender women who have been lost too soon, including those who go unreported. These trans women, whose lives were cut short due to hate and ignorance, should be remembered for their contributions, their struggles, and most importantly, their lives. Their memory should live on, and we should also be reminded to continue to fight for the recognition of trans rights and for a world without prejudice and hate. We must continue to strive for a world where all people are equally respected and accepted for who they are. CrimeWoods was created to shine light on stories that are often ignored and left untold by other true crime platforms. So if you've enjoyed this video, make sure to check out our other uploads. Please like, subscribe, and share this video across all of your social media platforms. If you've been inclined to comment, please do so respectfully, as the women mentioned in this video have family and friends who love them, some of whom are still seeking justice, knowing that nothing will bring back their loved one. Rest in heaven to all of these women,